Welcome to the RBC Sunday School Rewind. This is our opportunity each week to review the Sunday School lesson. This week's lesson was facilitated by our very own Deacon Michael Buford. Good afternoon, Deacon Buford.
Good afternoon.
So today's lesson was doing good deeds at the wrong time. And our passage came from Luke, the 14th chapter, verses 1 through 6. And our key verse was verses 3 and 4. Jesus asked the Pharisees and experts in the law, "Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not?" But they remained silent. So taking hold of the man, he healed him and sent him on his way. So Deacon Buford, we had a wonderful lesson discussion on today. Would you mind going ahead and letting our Rewind viewers know overview of what the lesson was about today?
Yes, be happy to. As we talked about in our lesson, this is Jesus' final journey to Jerusalem. So his ministry is coming, his 3-year ministry is coming to an end, and he's making his way to Calvary. But he's stopping in various cities, Samaria and Judea, and others. So today, Jesus finds himself in a small town called Perea, in Palestine. So Jesus receives an invite from a prominent Pharisee. And like last Sunday's lesson, we know that the Pharisees and Sadducees were both religious leaders and political leaders as well for the Jewish community. But the Pharisees was one of Jesus's chief adversary, and they were looking for any and everything that they could use against him because they did not believe that he was Messiah. So they're trying to find a way to kill him, actually. So they invite him to their house, and and they were looking what he was going to do with all this man who suffering illness that King James version is, which is the swelling of body parts, arms, limbs. Because in the Pharisees' minds, you couldn't heal anybody or help anybody because that was considered weak. So Jesus gets there, he sees the man. Even though it's a setup for Jesus, and Jesus turns the table and disarms the Pharisee, asking, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? So the Pharisees realized really quick that if they said yes, then their peers would look at them as being lawbreakers. But then they thought, well, if it's not lawful, for Jesus to help this man, and Jesus has a track record of healing and helping others, then they would be looked upon as being mean-spirited, not compassionate. So what they do? They said nothing. Jesus went ahead and healed the man and sent him on his way. And then he asked them, if you had a child or an ox or donkey that fell in the well, would you not help those? And again, they said, so that's kind of an overview of the lesson that we.
Yeah, it was a great lesson. And as you said, they were trying to set Jesus up, but he actually turned the tables on them and asked them the question. I think a comment was made during our lesson today that had they answered, "No, you can't heal on the Sabbath," people would have thought they were unfeeling, the Pharisees. But then if they admitted, yes, you can heal on the Sabbath, then they would have been accused of encouraging someone to break the law. So it's always great to see how Jesus deals with people in different scenarios. You brought up during our lesson today a couple of parts that were in our own church bylaws. You want to tell the listeners about why you brought those up and how that related to this particular lesson?
Yeah, the lesson is about, the Pharisees' perception of, the laws in the Torah, 5 books of, and God gave the Israelites in the Old Testament 600 or so. But the Pharisees added to that. The Bible does say that you should do no work on the Sabbath. But they interpreted the Pharisees, you know, interpreted work to be helping others. And Jesus was letting them know that no, uh, that's not work when you help others. When you help others, actually, you're worshiping God by. But one of the things we talked about is, our church has its own bylaws, and I just picked out a couple of things in the bylaws. One of which is that you're not financially active as a member within a 6 period, then you're considered inactive. And what happens when a member is inactive? Then he's not the rights and privileges of the church is not available. Um, and that generated some discussion. Well, how would someone know when they're not active? And we talked about that. They would be contacted in the year because let's say that there's someone passes away, case scenario, and family members believe that he or she was an active member, but they're not because they hadn't paid anything financially. There's the letter of the law that says no, because the church bylaw says no, that person is not available. But the church deals with these on individual basis because there are the law that we have to work. But one of the things that we do as a church is we certainly look um, as you say during our discussion, what would Jesus do in situation? We know what our bylaws say, know what's in front of us, but what would Jesus do? So we hope in situations like that we would always show compassion and work with family. And the other one that we talked about was in our bylaws in section 10, faith. It says, essentially quote Genesis, we believe marriage is between one man and one woman, and they come together to one union. And essentially what we are saying in that statement is if those with alternative lifestyles want to get married in our church, that our bylaw says, no, that is not what we believe, so we would not do that. Now, that doesn't mean that we wouldn't show compassion because, they're all God's children. So and I'm sure that there are members in our congregation who may have a different lifestyle than we do. But we see them as God's children and we show them the love that we show any of them. But our bylaw says that we haven't moralized that the church would not marry them because our belief is generated from the Bible. So that is why we brought this up. We have laws that we have to follow, and a couple of our members of Sunday school chimed in and said, yeah, there are laws that we have to follow, but we also have to show how we administer the requirements.
Yeah, that discussion was very interesting, and it brought up a lot of good points. I think it also brought up the point that if you're a member of Rehoboth and you don't have a copy of the bylaws, contact your deacon and you can get a copy to review. So, Deacon Buford, what would you like to leave everyone with about this particular lesson from today?
Well, when Jesus could have went along, get along. He could have saw the man with the illness and said, sir, could you come back tomorrow morning? Because I'm having dinner with the Pharisees and I'll get you all healed up.
Mm-hmm.
But the point of the lesson is there's no wrong time to do the right. And we closed our lesson with when we face situations like that, and God sees our heart, we should quickly think about what would Jesus do in a situation faced with. We also ended our discussion with saying that we should stay connected to God. Stay connected by continuing to study, continuing to pray, continuing to worship, continuing to fellowship, continuing to assist others and be available.
Amen, Deacon Buford. That was a great lesson, and I love the example. I'm gonna bring it up that you used in the class where you're on your way to church and your neighbor knocks on your door and asks you to take them someplace to visit a friend in the hospital or go to the grocery store and get something. You know, we're challenged. Do we race on off to church to find our favorite seat, or do we go ahead and help our neighbor? And I think that's again where what would Jesus do? Um, he would have us to help the person versus trying to make sure we get our name checked off the list as being present in church today. So, just another great lesson. I want to thank you for joining me here today for the rewind. And that's our rewind for today. So, I want to encourage everyone that's watching to please make sure that you subscribe to our channel, that you click on the notification bell so that when we upload a video, you'll be one of the first to know. You can also watch this on YouTube. Well, you can watch on YouTube or on Facebook, and you can make comments. And we are appreciating all your feedback and your comments. Please keep the feedback coming. You can make your comments on YouTube in the comments, on Facebook, or in the members only realm. So, once again, Deacon Buford, I want to thank you for leading us through another great lesson on today. And we will look forward to seeing everyone else next week in the rewind.
Thank you, Sister Brown, and I hope you have a great Sunday afternoon.
Thank you. You do the same.